guy had a small medical issue that kept him from being here tonight, so he sends his regards and his good wishes and wishes he could be here as well. But well represented by Mary Hines, which has been on the board for 2 terms as well. She's been a fierce advocate for Northern Virginia, but also with a statewide perspective. I've gotten to know her before a little bit, and when I served with her, she's a marvelous member and strong advocate. So it's obvious.
Well, thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good evening to everybody. Thank you all for making the trip out here to talk to us about our 6-year improvement plan and to experience the incredible diversity of regional transportation agencies that we have. It's really nice to be part of such a vibrant region that cares about moving people on all of the modes. I wanted to just take a minute to call out the work that's been going on relative to bike ped safety here at Virginia Nova. As everybody knows that, and the commissioner mentioned this, our serious injury and fatality numbers across the state are all going in the wrong direction. In fact, in Nova, 30% of our injuries and fatalities occur in bike and ped. It's higher than any other region in the Commonwealth. And so due to the great work of some of our staff here, we've got a couple boards out in the lobby that show you the planned nearly $40 million in investment in crosswalks, both in signalized and unsignalized locations that we expect to do over the next 5 years here in our district. This is really important work, and as everything up here, it's always done in collaboration. So thank you to the counties of Loudoun, Fairfax, and Prince William who work so closely to help identify where these investments need to be made. But we also use the Pedestrian Safety Action Plan, which is something you can find online, and research from the Virginia Transportation Research Council to identify the most effective places to make these investments. So maybe this is the first time that you've heard about the Pedestrian Safety Action Plan, the PSAP. It's been fairly new to me, although it's been around since 2018. It uses a data-driven approach to address locations, both with a history of crashes, along with proactively considering where the risks are, particularly for pedestrians. And you might be interested to know that following extensive analysis, it was found that a good indicator of where pedestrian crashes may occur in the future is something called the Virginia Health Opportunity Index. Basically, it says where folks are poorer, where they're color, where they have less access to transit, their health is less robust, and they're more at risk of crashes. So I encourage you to take a look at those boards before you leave. We are going to keep working this problem. It's a serious problem in our region, and we will use data, as we always do, to help figure out how to allocate additional dollars to meet additional challenges in keeping Northern Virginians safer. So thank you very much, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Ms. Hines. Appreciate you, everything you do. The next person on our agenda is Mr. John Lynch. John came to this Northern Virginia district is in this job in, excuse me. I hope. 2021, previously in the Culpeper district, and before that up here with mega projects. You got to come home and have some more stuff to do. But John is, is one of our star pros at VDOT, and that's why he's up here.
All right, thank you, Mr. Secretary. As a district engineer, I do want to welcome everybody to the Northern Virginia District. We're looking forward to your input on the 6-year improvement plan. Just wanted to give you a couple of updates on some ongoing projects around the district before we get your thoughts. In Arlington County, under construction, we have the Boundary Channel Drive at I-395 for some interchange improvements, and the Roslyn Tunnel rehab, which is part of our special structures program. So we'll get some upgraded ITS and some other infrastructure improved there. And in study and design, we have Route 1 in Crystal City, or National Landing, as it's now called. We do have a public meeting May 15th to present the closing results for phase 2 of that study. So we're looking to wrapping that up later this year. In Fairfax, the Route 7 corridor project, widening from 2 to 3 lanes with bike trails on both sides. That's winding down in early 2024, so we'll see the benefits of that project very soon. And then the widening Route 29 out here from the Fairfax County Parkway down through Clifton Road to help facilitate traffic through that area. But that's just getting started, as something you may have seen if you came in that way. And then also in design, we have the Fairfax County Park widening. That's phased with the Pope's Head interchange as one project, and then the widening 2 phases from 29 to 123. And those will all be advertised late this year or early next year. So we'll see most of that under construction in 2024, 2025. And then the Richmond Highway Corridor improvements in conjunction with Fairfax County's BRT is ongoing. In Loudoun County, we have the Route 7 George Washington Parkway overpass, and also designing Loudoun County's metro bicycle and ped improvements to facilitate access to the Silver Line for biking pedestrians. Prince William County, we just celebrated the ribbon cutting for the 95 southbound auxiliary lane between 123 and the Prince William Parkway. So that'll be opening up this week, I believe, fully. And then the I-95 over Powell's Creek rehab, which is ongoing under construction. And then in design, the 95 Route 123 interchange improvements, which is the first progressive design build in the state of Virginia. So we're eagerly waiting how that turns out. And then our mega projects program led by our very own Susan Shaw. I-66 outside the Beltway, we initiated tolling at the end of last year. We still have some work to do on the side streets to button all that up. And that'll be later this summer. And then the 495 Express Lanes Northern Extension Project, the 495 Next is and actually entered its second year of construction. And then we also have the 495 South Side Express Lane study. So we're winding down the environmental work on that. We'll start the public involvement process to show some of the preferred alternates here, and that's from Springfield across the Wilson Bridge into Prince George's County. So I want to thank all our team for putting this meeting together, as well as all your efforts in keeping Virginia moving. So thank you.
Thank you, John. And next is my honor to welcome Kate Mattice here. Kate, as I indicated earlier, has been in the transportation business for a day or so. Certainly a huge impact here in Northern Virginia and throughout the Commonwealth. So, Mr. Price, thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary Miller, and it's wonderful to be up here, Ms. Hines, and obviously our colleagues from VDOT and DRPT and our regional partners. And thank you to all of you for coming out this evening. So indeed, I'm Kate Mattice. I'm Executive Director of the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission. And tonight I'm excited to present our FY 2024-2025 I-95, 395 commuter choice projects for public comment. And I do hope you had a chance to see our wonderful booth outside with lots of information about these projects. Commuter Choice is NVTC's competitive grant program that is done in partnership with the Commonwealth, and it reinvests toll revenues that are really transformative transit and other transportation projects that move more people through our I-66 and our I-395, 95 express lanes here in Northern Virginia. And so it's really exciting because since 2017, the Commuter Choice program's awarded more than $100 million to 58 projects, ranging in geography from Stafford all the way to Loudoun County. We've actually saved commuters $12 million in fuel cost. We've saved 82 million vehicle miles. We've avoided 100 automobile crashes because more people are taking transit. And in fact, we've saved commuters 900,000 hours of travel time, which equates to about 24 million economic benefits to the region. So quite an impact in those 5 years of the program. So each year, NVTC solicits projects from our local cities, counties, and transit systems for this very special funding. These are projects that our cities and counties have included in their own plans and done public engagement. But we're here to talk about and to share how these can be funded through the toll revenues. And so through May 15th, we're accepting public comment on those projects that are being considered for I-395 and 95. So we have $48 million in funding available for this 2-year program. And some of the project proposals that are out there include the purchase of 2 60-foot electric buses for Dash's bus routes, continuation of funding for a total of 8 OmniRide, Dash, and Fairfax Connector commuter bus routes, expanded local bus service along Columbia Pike in Arlington and Fairfax counties, the reinstatement and enhancement of VRE's Amtrak step-up ticket program, and an additional daily round trip on the Fredericksburg line, and helping provide key funding to 3 rail expansion projects and to help move the BRT on Richmond Highway towards completion. So as our team continues to advance a program of projects for consideration by the Commission and the Potomac and Rappahannock Transportation Commission, we put together a robust set of public comment materials, including an easy-to-use 3-minute survey, both in English and in Spanish. And all of this can be found at novatransit.org. And again, public comment will be received through May 15th. And so we look forward to hearing from you as well as in future rounds of commuter choice. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Kate. I'm gonna leave it right with you next.
Well, thank you, Mr. Secretary. I'm Monica Backman, the CEO of
Very shy.
I am the CEO of the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. I would like to acknowledge the authority's chair who came in, Chair Phyllis Randall, who's also the chair of Loudoun County. Starting off. A few things about MVTA. So we were created in 2002 to plan, prioritize, and program regionally significant congestion reducing, and I'll add multimodal transportation investments throughout the region. As we always say in Northern Virginia at MVTA, there is no one-size-fits-all solution when it comes to trying to address our congestion woes and our traffic issues. So one of our primary responsibilities is to develop the region's long-range transportation plan. It is critically important because your project cannot be funded if your project is not in that plan. So the authority just recently, and I mean December of 2022, adopted the latest round of transaction. And transaction we adopted every 5 years. For staff, it really is an every 2.5 year effort. But this plan consists of 424 projects. Now, transaction is a needs-based document. Our funding document is the 6-year program. So the goals that we focus on are enhancing mobility, increasing accessibility, and improving resiliency. And that is done through our 3 core values: equity, safety, and sustainability. So what's new in transaction? Just to be brief, we have 2 key new initiatives in transaction. One is transportation technology. We want to look at technology and how can we utilize technology in trying to meet our goals and our core values. And 2 is a regional preliminary deployment plan for a bus rapid transit system, where we will work with all of our localities, all of our agencies, and trying to capitalize off of the existing BRT systems and those underway, and how we can create a seamless BRT network. In MVTA, we have adopted 6 funding programs. Those 6 funding programs total $3.1 billion for 122 projects. As of today, we just opened the application portal for funding program number 7. I do not know how much money we will have. So I do not know the finance team. They are working on the numbers now. The application portal just opened today. So we tell everyone, make sure you have a thorough and comprehensive application, work with your neighbors, see how these projects meet the core values and the goals, but work with your neighbors, your localities, the agencies as well. And this funding program will cover fiscal years 2024 through 2029. Lastly, as I wrap up, we have Transportation Technology Strategic Plan. In November, we expanded 2 of our strategies in that strategic plan, and we added a 9th strategy that focuses on emerging technologies in transit. Again, we are really heavily focused on how we can capitalize off of transit to meet some of our goals. And we are continuing to partner with the Commonwealth, the DRPT and VDOT for the Regional Multimodal Mobility Program. I see Kathy over there, who this is really under Kathy McGee, who's now our Deputy Commissioner, but we are still partnering with those agencies to try to look at how can we use artificial intelligence, dynamic incentivization, and things of that nature to really incentivize people getting out of their cars and using alternative modes. Lastly, and I'll just put in this plug, if you want any information on any of the 122 projects that NVTA is funding, please go to novagateway.org. We provide real-time information on each project. And now we are working on not only having the projects that we fund with the 70%, we are going to add the projects that the localities are funding with their 30% as well. So we can be as transparent as we possibly can regarding what's going on with the region and NVTA's footprint. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you, Monica.
thank you, Monica.
Now, James.
Thank you, sir. My name is James Walkinshaw. I represent the Braddock District on the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. I also serve as the chair of the Virginia Railway Express Operations Board and as the vice chair of the Transportation Planning Board. And just as an aside, Mr. Secretary, you noted the legislation requiring that TPB be invited to participate in this meeting, and Delegate Brianna Sewell patroned that legislation. She used to work for me in Congressman Jerry Connolly's office. I'm here in this meeting today, so it seems like now I work for her. I used to tell her what meetings to go to, and she's told me to come to this one, but very happy to be here with you all. I'll speak just briefly on behalf of the Board of Supervisors. We very much appreciate our partnership with VDOT, especially the Northern Virginia District, with respect to the 6-year plan. We'll be preparing a comment letter from the full Board of Supervisors that you all will receive later this month. So thank you for the opportunity to comment on the plan. The Transportation Planning Board, it's a very exciting time at the Transportation Planning Board. We are in the midst of developing our Visualized 2050 plan, the long-range transportation plan for the region. The Transportation Planning Board has established some very aggressive climate goals. And we're asking all of the jurisdictions in the region as they evaluate and make the decisions as to which projects are submitted to the plan to make sure they're in alignment with those climate goals. So it's an exciting time, and I think there's broad support for that concept across the region. Mr. Kanti Srikant from the TPB is here. Thank you for joining us, Kanti. On behalf of VRE, Mr. Secretary, I want to thank you and Director DeBrule especially for your strong support of the Virginia Railway Express. It's been a challenging time for commuter rail, and commuter rail riders have returned post-pandemic slower than other transit riders, slower than bus systems, slower than even metro rail riders. But the good news is they are returning to VRE, and we are poised to capitalize on the transformational investments that the Commonwealth and Northern Virginia are making with transforming rail in Virginia and the Long Bridge project. I want to thank you, Director Brule, especially Mr. Secretary, for your support in our effort to secure the new dedicated funding for commuter rail through the Mass Transit Fund, and our members of the General Assembly who are here with us today for supporting that. It's going to ensure that VRE can continue to be the incredible asset. And I always try to remind people that we talk a lot in Northern Virginia about metro rail as an asset for economic development, and it absolutely is, but so is VRE. And folks who are involved in the effort to attract Amazon to National Landing know that metro rail was a key part of that conversation, but so is the VRE station that's right there. And we know that that VRE station and VRE is also a huge asset as we compete across the region to secure the FBI headquarters in Fairfax County, because a lot of FBI employees live points south. They can't use metro rail to get to that Springfield location necessarily, but they will be able to use VRE. So your continued support and investment in VRE is going to help us secure our future in terms of economic development in the region as well. So thank you all for coming out today.
Thanks, James. Really appreciate it. A great public servant who does a lot of work in his community to make it a better place to live. So thank you, Monica, for introducing Chair Randall. She slipped in here and didn't give me a chance to recognize her, but I want to recognize someone else first. Well, since you've already been recognized, I'm gonna recognize you again in a minute. So, we're also joined today, by Senator Dave Marsden. Dave is the, senator from the 37th District in Virginia. Dave has been, the chairman of the Senate Transportation Committee, and certainly has been a great help to me as I came to this job. He invited me to come counsel and he told me what I needed to do. And I said, yes, sir. And I left and everything's been fine since. I'm just kidding. But, Dave has been a great helper for me to understand what's important in Virginia and what he sees through his lens as the chairman. So I do appreciate that, sir. And we like to joke with each other because he went and ran off making. I went to Hampton, Sydney. It's kind of like oil and water. I'm not sure which one you are, sir, but I'm the water. No, just kidding. We love each other except when we play football against each other. But Dave, thank you, senators. Thank you so much for being here. This is the public comment portion of our meeting, so we'd be love to hear from you if you want us. You'd like to say something? Yes, sir.
I could very quickly. Yes, thank you so much, Secretary Miller. And thank you. It's good to be here.
Maybe you don't need both of those, Dave.
Yes,
We get feedback or something.
good deal. Good deal. Thank you. At any rate, I just wanted to put something on your radar screen that I've been working on here for a few years. It's putting a puzzle together on a trail in Fairfax County that will connect to the next project. And the next project will, I think, ultimately connect to the C&O Canal and the Maryland Trail system. But we need a connector, which is already partially there along Georgetown Pike, which runs down through the Great Falls Park. I've been dealing with a number of bicycle groups who are willing to construct it, based on whatever plans that the park authority has on their part of the property, or the projected route, and also what VDOT would recommend to their part of it. One of the holdups has been, and it's a problem that we need to solve, which is we need about a 3/10 of a mile right away along the border of Madeira School. And I've had VDOT out to take a look at, there's an intersection right at the entrance to Madeira School that's offset. In other words, you come out and there's a road within like 75 feet, and it's just a very, very difficult situation. And it's something that might induce them to grant that right away, and rather than to go through any other legal process to do that if we decide to go ahead with this project. But VDOT, my understanding is, has figured out a way to get across Difficult Run near the bridge on Georgetown Pike, and to get there. And what that does is it not only gets people to the park in a natural surface trail, but through the park and to connect up to the other side and eventually to get to the WO&D trail on the other side, which connects Virginia, connects Maryland. It's a recreational source for the people in the certainly in the local area for walking and hiking, biking, and even perhaps for horseback riding, which is a big element at the Great Falls Park. So what I wanted to put on your radar screen to help us solve this puzzle and put these puzzle pieces together is an engineering study. And I've been dealing with Jason Powell, formerly of, and we've walked this. Jason has walked it. We've been through this a couple of times. He's familiar with it. And I know he's been working closely with you, Mr. Secretary, and VDOT. But to help us pull this puzzle together and to have the engineers look, and it's going to cost obviously a little bit of money. But I wanted to put that on your radar screen because this is a real cooperative effort between the biking community, between the citizens in that area, and to connect up the good work that's being done with the next project along the Beltway. And we finally got permission from the park authority that they're okay with the direct connection to the C&O Canal, is my understanding. And before they were a little bit reluctant because it would put heavy traffic on it and maintenance issues. And now we have a park superintendent who's willing to talk about working our way through the park. That hadn't always been the case. So just wanted to put that on your radar screen. It has been a joy to work with you, Mr. Secretary, despite our football differences from that pop up yearly, although we've been winning a lot lately. But that's beside the point. But at any rate, I just wanted to do that, and I'll be in touch with hopefully, Mr. Lynch and the folks here in Northern Virginia to see what steps we need to take. But at some point in time, that might require a little money to carry the engineering part of this forward so that we could get this project, which really does an amazing connection piece for Maryland, Virginia, for Fairfax County, for Loudoun County. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, sir, for coming and helping us there. We look forward to it, and my mother always told me you need to let the other team win every once in a while, and come back. So we're on that roll with you right now.
I think you're still up a couple of games since 1890, whatever.
We are.
Thank you. Excuse me, I have to run.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very
having
much.
me. It's good to see everyone.
Thanks for all that you do, Senator. Our next person, my next person we get to introduce is somebody that's important to me as well, Delegate Vivian Watts. Vivian came to the House in 1981. Vivian, I was just leaving the Senate as an aide from the year before when I worked for Herb Bateman. So Vivian served in the House for a few years, and then she became the Secretary of Transportation. And so Vivian knows a lot more than I do. And she's very helpful to me when I need some help to give me a hand. Vivian has been the longest serving lady in the House of Delegates. I think we passed that mark 5 or 6 years ago. So just an incredible public servant, but most interesting I think about her, it tells you a lot, is she ran the Special Advocates Program earlier in her life. She was working for people that needed some help in the system. And that's really good work. That's really special work.
Did you say a word?
Yes, I'm inviting you up, but I'm giving you a big welcome. So thank you so much for all that you do, and we love to hear from you.
I wasn't going to say anything because the real reason for being here is to hear the input from this area. But I do have a few perspectives that I'd like to share as I listen to everything. One, over all of those years of involvement, I realized the challenge that VDOT has to serve a vast urban county, when so much of what you have a jurisdiction over are truly rural counties, the original. So I really realized that concern. I realize the problems that we are not like a city, and so we don't have some of the same responsibilities. But I wanted to sound that out particularly on a couple of projects that I'm currently involved with, the Cinderbed Trail to the Metro Center in Springfield, but it also brings up the trail design that may exist along Braddock Road improvements, and those issues of balancing out the local concerns in an urban area with standards that are appropriate for the urban areas, and particularly some of the environmental concerns, when as we urbanize, the environmental concerns become more and more critical in that they are precious opportunities. And that if we lose some of our environmental aspects, they can't be replaced within our urban density. And then the other thing that I wanted to quickly sound out, after having been involved for so many years, so many decades on funding, we have not mentioned tonight, and I've got to mention that big concern that I have over what's going to come of what we're going to be asked as Virginia to support Metro Rail. And having worked so hard on the funding, both for the basic structure in Virginia, starting back in '86 when I was secretary, in 2013 when we finally were able to establish the regional funding that went along with the regional planning structure. And then, of course, in 2020, when we finally put our gasoline tax in line with the rest of the nation, although still below average, but most importantly, tied it to the inflationary costs that we have to deal with. That when I look at how much blood, sweat, and tears there have been in that when we look at Metro Rail and Virginia's responsibility in this major economic driver, as well as major alternative as a backbone to the transportation structure of Northern Virginia, the economic engine of Virginia, that I really want to sound out my concern that everything that I have just addressed in the other funding has a place at the table, and simply robbing Peter to pay Paul is not really in the best interest of our total transportation structure. So I appreciate your letting me speak to both the small refinements of an urban area to the very major concern of the economic driver of Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out tonight.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you for everything.
No, University of Michigan.
It's just a small team somewhere else.
Yeah.
I'll let my friends at Notre Dame handle that.
Yeah, they'll do their job.
The next person I'd like to introduce and call upon is Chair Phyllis Randall. Phyllis has become a good close ally to keep me informed and aware and educated. It's really been a pleasure for me, Chair Randall, to get to know you and learn from you. He has a really strong ability to just communicate clearly and not pull a lot of punches. Just tell you what she thinks and why, and that's really appreciated. So.
Well, thank you. That got me in trouble a lot when I was growing up, Joe.
It still does.
Before we do anything else, I want us to all take a moment and notice Mr. Birch's socks, because they are fantastic. Before you leave, ask him to pull up his pants, so you can see his socks. It is covered with alcohol and liquor. As he sits talking about transportation, let's just make sure we do that first.
My socks are proper.
Your socks should be appropriate and proper. That is
My
correct.
daughter-in-law bought them for me, and they got a little monogram on them to be cool.
They're very appropriate socks.
No alcohol.
No alcohol in your socks. So thank you. I am Phyllis Randall. I am the chair of Loudoun County, Virginia, and the chair of the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. And I do want to thank everybody for being here. This is an important gathering of people who really do understand transportation. I especially want to thank and note Mary Hines, who's been doing this work for years and has taught so many of us so much. Her focus right now on the bike and ped incidents of fatalities and serious injuries, and especially in Northern Virginia, is something that I didn't know until she told me, and I've done lots of research on it. So thank you for bringing all those issues to light. I want to say that the Transportation Authority does really focus on a couple of things. We of course have our core values. We also focus on multimodal transportation. I think that's important to say that, because some people may have the belief that we just build roads. We don't. We do a whole lot of funding for transit, and we realize that the best way to help Northern Virginia is to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to get around in every possible way. We have kind of saying that anything that moves, let's put people on it and get them going. And we've also focused more recently on geographical diversity, so making sure that all parts of the Northern Virginia region receives funding. I want to quickly speak to something Ms. Watt said, and she did it a lot more elegant and grace than I normally do when she talked about not robbing Peter to pay Paul as it comes to funding Metro. And you're right, James, VOT is all very important, but in the past, there has been some funding of Metro out of NVTA funds, and we still have not had all those funds recouped from NVTA, and we still need to have all those funds recouped. So we need to make sure that that doesn't happen again, because after all, MBTA amasses its money by taxing our people in Northern Virginia, and we don't want to retax and retax and retax anyone. And I also want to say that, you know, and I say this every time I have a mic in front of me and I'm talking about Metro. The federal government pays a very low percentage of Metro, although Metro moves a good portion of the federal government's workforce. I have never understood why we haven't had a louder voice talking to our Maryland delegations and our Virginia delegations about a larger funding source from the federal government to Metro. Metro, the federal government cannot survive without Metro, yet Fairfax County is paying almost the same amount to Metro that the federal government pays. It is something that we just, I am baffled as to why we let this happen. We don't talk about this, but Metro's too important, and to let it go into the conditions it's been there before, the federal government is not paying their way. Finally, Secretary Miller, let me say to you, you know, I have, you know, we are in separate parties, separate political parties. I don't know if I've enjoyed meeting or talking or spending time with anybody more than you were. You were a very, very nice man. You're a kind man. And when anyone asked me about you, I start off with, you should see his hair. And then, and then I go from there. So thank
got it cut.
you.
It was a little bit wild.
This is fantastic. So thank you for being gracious and kind and always willing to have these really important discussions. Really appreciate being here. Thanks.
Thank you, Phil. We recognized two people earlier that were here, but I'd like to recognize them again and ask if they'd like to speak. Chair Wheeler, if you would like to come up. Chair Dorsey, you're gonna be on deck, sir. Take your time, man.
Always in a hurry.
I gotta work on my hair.
Thank you very much. I am Ann Wheeler, Chair at Large of Prince William County. I want to thank you for the opportunity to provide comments on the Commonwealth Six-Year Improvement Program on behalf of Prince William County, the Commonwealth's second largest jurisdiction with 492,000 people. Prince William County's Department of Transportation will be submitting detailed written comments, and my remarks this evening are just meant to highlight support for project funding recommendations as well as program policies. With respect to smart scale, Prince William County strongly supports the recommended smart scale funding for the county's Route 234 Sudley Road Business Corridor Improvement Project. This project is a result of the VDOT funded STAR study and will implement cost-effective improvements along a key corridor to improve operations and safety. Overall, though, the county shares the concerns of many of our neighboring jurisdictions about the lack of funding for Northern Virginia in Smart Scale Round 5. The region received less than 7% of total funding available and didn't receive any high priority project funding. Given the region's significant needs, this is both surprising and somewhat concerning. I would like to thank our CTB members, Commissioner Mary Hines and Commissioner Scott Kasperitz, for hosting a round robin and allowing county staff to share Prince William County's feedback. We hope that this feedback will be given consideration in the ongoing Smart Scale Review project process. With respect to CMAQ and RSTP, we support the funding recommendations in the draft 6-year improvement program. These recommendations, which I got to also approve as a Northern Virginia Transportation Authority member, provide funding for critical bus transit and roadway projects in Prince William County, including 3 projects were overwhelmingly approved by voters as part of the 2019 mobility referendum. The revenue sharing and transportation alternative programs are key funding sources in the 6-year improvement program for Prince William County that support crucial community projects, so thank you. As the CTB considers the significant policy changes being proposed, we hope you'll engage Prince William County and other jurisdictions as stakeholders to ensure that any policy changes do not hinder localities' ability to effectively and secure and program these funds to deliver high priority projects for our residents. Last, safety, as Secretary Miller mentioned, but certainly not least, Prince William County would like to take this opportunity to advocate for increased funding for safety improvements. This county, like the Commonwealth and much of the nation, has experienced a troubling increase in traffic fatalities and serious injuries, and we urge the CTB to explore opportunities to expand funding for safety programs through existing programs, as well as evaluate potential new dedicated funding sources. And also on behalf of Prince William County, I want to thank you for, we are grateful to be part of a Commonwealth that so values transportation in all its forms, and all the agencies and the people here who work so hard every day to make us a wonderful Commonwealth and to keep us moving. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Next is, Mayor Christian Dorsey from.
Small but mighty Arlington, Virginia.
Still mighty.
Well, you know, we're up to 240 and 26 square miles. So small but mighty Arlington. Thank you very much, Secretary Miller, for convening us today. Commissioner Bridge for hosting us physically. And of course, always good to see a former Arlington board member, Mary Hines, who's doing great work in the Commonwealth Transportation Board, and to all of you transportation leaders on the panel this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the SIP as well as Smart Scale. Arlington remains profoundly grateful for the positive relationship that we have had with state officials. It's through years of collaboration. We have produced some pretty successful and innovative multimodal solutions for the traveling public, supporting Arlington as a world-class destination, and dare I say, a wonderful place to live. Now, walking, biking, and transit are the core of the transportation network in Arlington, and among the main reasons that companies and residents choose to locate there. And I want to be clear, these modes are not the purview of a niche few. More than half of all trips in Arlington's urban corridors are made by transit, walking, or biking. And in recent decades, although our county has added over 60,000 people and 26 million square feet of office space, we have traffic counts on many of our corridors which have been reduced. That's not per capita, that's a net reduction in actual car counts on our roads. This happens because the Commonwealth works with us to manage a transportation network that puts pedestrians, cyclists, and transit users first. We also appreciate that many travelers will continue to need to travel to Arlington and through Arlington by car. Rising traffic fatalities and road safety remain a pressing concern for us. To that end, we are pleased that the safety improvements at Arlington Boulevard and Manchester Street are included in Smart Scale funding recommendations. And now that we've had 5 successful rounds of Smart Scale almost under our belt, we can agree that it works significantly better than the previous system of project selection. The most critical aspect of Smart Scale success is its flexibility to the needs of different localities across the Commonwealth, eschewing a one-size-fits-all approach. The evaluation measures remain good, especially environmental quality and land use. It's imperative that these standards not be diluted or eliminated in future rounds. And for round 5, I understand that from our staff that the administrative functions have been greatly improved and that state staff are extremely helpful at every level. We thank you. But I do have some suggestions for improvement. The increased requirements for project readiness are not reasonable when required so many years in advance of funding. Please provide near-term funding allocations or more funding for planning support through programs such as Project Pipeline. And with regard to the Smart Scale evaluation criteria, transportation-oriented land use is a better congestion mitigation measure than congestion mitigation and should be weighted accordingly, more heavily. And finally, I join Chair Wheeler in expressing concern that there are 0 projects from Northern Virginia included in the high priority projects program in round 5. Northern Virginia remains proud to be an economic driver here in the Commonwealth, and the state's transportation investment should reflect that accordingly. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Now our regular public comment period will begin. We have a 3-minute rule, and you'll see a clock up there. I don't pay a lot of attention to the rule unless I don't like what you're saying. It's 3 minutes. No, I'm teasing. But I'm not going to cut you off if you're finishing something up. if you go to 5 or 6 and you keep talking the same thing over and over again, and somebody said 3 times, I'm gonna call it rule. Because other people are here as well. We want to hear from everybody, but we want to be as succinct and as thoughtful of everyone else's time here as well. I'm here the rest of the night, so I'm good. But with that, Mr. Bill Pugh, the Coalition for Smarter Growth, you're up first, sir. Welcome. And Ms. Anna Gosling's going to be on deck, FYI. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Secretary, and we appreciate opportunity to speak to you, to the Commissioner, to the CTB, and the other agency officials here tonight. So it's great to have everyone all in one place, and we're glad that the TPB is also represented this year as well. We appreciate the inclusion in the 6-year program of the key transit and rail projects, and also the projects that are designed to make our streets and roads safer for vulnerable users and to improve local access in transit station areas. The Coalition for Smarter Growth also appreciates the focus on state of good repair and bridge repair and replacement as well. These are particularly important as climate change puts our infrastructure at risk going into the future. And I want to touch on 3 points. One is safety, the other climate change, and the other is smart scale. You've heard tonight CTB member Hines quote cite the Northern Virginia alarming safety statistics that have happened last year. We urge you to continue focusing and to put more emphasis similar to what we heard from our elected officials in the region on safety. This is also a design issue. We have a lot of arterials in this region, and these arterials are where a disproportionate number of our fatalities and injuries occur. So the designs need to take into account the needs of pedestrians and bicyclists who are trying to cross ever wider, ever faster arterials. So that's a point that we look forward to seeing reflected in the VDOT plans. Related to safety and your charge to provide safe infrastructure, our future generations, our current generations are counting on you to provide a transportation system that keeps them safe from disastrous climate change. We know that we have 7 years to lower emissions to meet global targets as well as regional targets from the Council of Governments. Fairfax County has a target to slash emissions by 2030. Alexandria, Arlington, other counties in the region are also developing their climate action plans. And we know that this will take both adoption of electric vehicles at a rapid pace. And the TPB, our Regional Transportation Planning Board, showed that in addition to rapid vehicle electrification, we also need to reduce vehicle miles traveled by about 20% by 2030 related to pre-pandemic levels. That's also holds up at the state level. The state of California, even with the most ambitious program of electric vehicles in the country, found that it needs to reduce per capita vehicle miles traveled by 25% by 2030 and 30% by 2045. So we need both strategies, and we urge greater emphasis, greater funding to go to electric vehicles programs, and also to make sure that VDOT's programs recognize the role of induced demand. That if we want to use our resources smartly, we've talked about the pressures of inflation and also the needs that are greater than the funding. We need to use that funding smartly and recognize that induced demand and the additional driving that happens and additional traffic when we expand roads without other solutions, that will negate some of those expenditures, and it also increases the emissions. So we urge you to look at that in the carbon reduction program as VDOT begins to develop that this year. Lastly, on smart scale, we heard the importance of this from various speakers here. We urge you not to weaken smart scale. We recall former Speaker Howell's concern about the impact of poor land use planning on the cost of state transportation and his strong support of smart scale because he wanted to see our tax dollars used widely. Therefore, we support strengthening smart scale and the methodology, which provides lots of accountability and transparency. But some ways to strengthen it are to better encompass all modes of transportation, greater emphasis on the quantification and reduction of greenhouse gas emissions, and opportunities for additional transparency, like making applications available for public review sooner in the process. So again, we thank you for the projects that are supporting Northern Virginia in the 6-year improvement program, and we hope you consider these remarks as ways to strengthen the program and other VDOT programs going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Pugh.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here. Anna Gosling, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Virginia Sierra Club, welcome. We're gonna let that, when you run that clock, just let it keep running. Will it go negative? Your clock go negative?
No, it'll be one.
No, I just want to see how long they're going negative so they'll know. I'll let you know if you go.
Thank you,
That's-
appreciate it.
Sometimes they go negative, so it goes down to 0, then it goes negative numbers. You don't do that.
It would buzz. Do you want it to buzz?
No,
Okay.
go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, my
We're gonna
name,
listen to her for a little bit.
okay. My name is Anna Gosling, and I'm speaking for the Virginia Sierra Club. We support cleaner transportation options that reduce greenhouse gas emissions, improve air quality, and give people more choices in how they travel. If we expand transportation choices so that residents can take transit, walk, and bicycle as easily as they can drive, we will decrease congestion, reduce traffic fatalities, and reduce pollution, all while making our communities better places to live, work, and play. We recognize that Virginia has limited funds to address our transportation needs and suggest that we focus those funds for the most cost-effective improvements. We appreciate the data-driven approach of Smart Scale, but would very much encourage that we weight environmental issues more heavily, such as greenhouse gas emissions. Smaller scale projects, particularly bike and pedestrian infrastructure, give us the best opportunities for smart growth. These projects are less expensive to both build and maintain than roads, and they make travel safer and more enjoyable for drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians alike. The Smart Scale funding recommendations in Northern Virginia support a more effective transportation network, serving all modes of travel and more compact, efficient land use. We strongly support full funding for the following projects. In the city of Fairfax, the South Street Extension and the George Snyder Trail Eastern Extension. In Loudoun, the Route 7 shared use path and sidewalk, the pedestrian improvements in Lovettsville, the Franklin Park to Town of Percival Trail, and both of the bike and pedestrian pathways on the Cascades Parkway. And in Manassas City, the Godwin Drive shared use path. In addition to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, these projects reduce transit times, improve safety, reduce congestion, and encourage smart growth in our communities. Thank you for your.
Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate your, I think it's, is it Clesis or
Clesis, Nick Clesis.
Clesis.
Yeah.
Nick Clesis, Boston Civic Association.
I'm not representing the Boston Civic Association. I'm really here representing myself.
Not with the Boston Civic.
But I am a member anyway, Boston Civic Association. So you can tell where I live. I live in Arlington, Virginia. I'm not here to comment necessarily on what your plans are. I'm here to comment what I see as problems really inside the Beltway. First, I want to deal with Route 50. It's a very dangerous highway, especially within Arlington's borders. If you go from Carlin Springs Road up until Washington Boulevard, the only thing that's separating different lanes of the opposing lanes of traffic are 2 yellow stripes. And there are places where left lanes are typically, it's 3 lanes and another 3 lanes on the other side. The leftmost lane is typically for drivers, the one that's going the fastest. But the way it's configured in Arlington, you have access to all the side streets without signalized intersections. So all of a sudden you can find yourself in the left lane and having to come to a hard stop because somebody decided to make a left turn at Irving Street and you have no idea, like, Irving Street is over here. Why is he making a left turn over here? Why can't he go farther? So I understand that there was a proposal to actually fix this, to put a median in or separate the lanes a bit, put in left turn lanes to make it safer. But somehow that didn't move forward. And, you know, maybe our friends from the Arlington County Board can tell us more about that. I mean, not now, but anyway, so that is one thing. And number two, this is a very minor thing, but probably a very difficult thing to handle, is Glebe Road. Now, I have to go take my daughter to language instruction at the church. It's in Bethesda. So I find myself going in the evening, you know, and I either have to go over Chain Bridge and make a roundabout to get up over to Seven Locks Road, or I have to go to, you know, the American Legion Bridge. And both are nightmares. If I choose to take the Chain Bridge Road, the Chain Bridge route, right? So Route 120, Glebe Road, is a pretty healthy, you know, design highway up until the upper reaches of northern Arlington, where it stops. And I think at that point, that's where the Georgia Avenue Bridge was supposed to go over. It was never built. And so there's this little winding road that goes down this gully. And I notice whenever it rains, trees are falling down on it. You can see the guardrails. They're constantly smashed. They have to constantly be fixed or replaced. So this is a safety improvement I'm talking about over here. What can be done? Something has to be done with that, or should be done. It goes through a very fancy neighborhood. I think maybe the residents wouldn't like any changes to that road, but I think in the interest of safety, something should be done about that. The last thing is Route 66. Now, Route 66, there was this great, you know, job where a third lane was added going eastbound. And in the past, there were some fixes that were going westbound, like there's this accessory lane, it was called, between Glebe Road and Sycamore Street. After it, so it's 3 lanes at about that point. The third lane is an exit only onto Sycamore Street. Then you have this bridge going over where the East Walls Church Metro is. It's 2 lanes. And then after that, there's another widening. It goes to 4 lanes, believe it or not. Now, traffic going westbound all of a sudden has to, you know, if it's in the third lane, it has to drop into this, you know, the first 2 lanes are on the left side, and it creates these backups and difficulties. I don't understand why, when the improvements were being made to the eastbound lanes, why another lane wasn't put in on that bridge going westbound, at least to maintain that 3-lane configuration, so you don't have these sudden movements and sudden problems.
Sector 6.
And anyway, I'll leave it at that, but it's those 3 things that I'd like to comment on.
We'd love to look into it. Thank you for coming out. Our next speaker is Mr. Jason Stanton. Jason is with the Northern Virginia Transportation Alliance, another great transportation person in Northern Virginia. Well, welcome, sir. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Mr.
The
Secretary.
floor is yours.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment today. I hear a lot of good comments, but I'm here really to talk about our suggestions for improving Smart Scale. Smart Scale's data-driven approach has been an important step forward for Virginia. However, after 5 rounds, I think there's still more work to be done. First, if you look at the last 3 rounds of Smart Scale, the amount of funding requested appears to have a significant impact on which projects are selected. In round 3, 8 of the 12 lowest funding requests in Northern Virginia were funded. In round 4, 9 of the 12 lowest requests. And now in round 5, we're looking at funding 10 of the 12 lowest requests for funding. While cost should always be a factor, the current system seems to prioritize smaller projects with smaller benefits, because the larger benefits of other projects are minimized by this complicated process. This complicated process makes it difficult to apply for funding and requires submitting applications, often with limited details, for a project that might not even be started for 5 or 6 years. This creates significant ambiguity in the accuracy of the data and increases the ability to, manipulate it so that the process to kind of earn the desired funding for politically favorable projects. For example, peak period throughput for Loudoun's Route 7 project changed from 1,862 people in round 4 of Smart Scale to 536 people in round 5. In round 3, the peak period throughput for Dumfries Route 1 project was 87 people, and in round 4, it was 1,280. Because it's unclear how these base numbers are calculated, it becomes really impossible for outsiders to replicate the computations with publicly available data. The primary goal of our transportation system should be making it easier for more people to move goods and people and goods to move throughout our community. Unfortunately, sometimes SmartScale falls short of identifying those projects. For example, in round 4, the highest scoring project in NOVA had a congestion mitigation score of 0, a safety score of 0, an accessibility score of 0, an environmental score of 0, and an economic development score of 0.5, and a land use score of 19.5. And this was a highway project. In other words, the location of this project in one of Northern Virginia's denser communities was not just the primary benefit, but the sole benefit. The surrounding job and population densities tell us little about the quality of the project. It simply prioritizes projects in urban areas over suburban and rural ones. With only 7 projects exceeding 30 total benefit points in the last 3 rounds of SmartScale, a purely location-based score worth 20 points is a significant advantage. Finally, we should consider redefining congestion mitigation to include additional focus on the number of people moved in a 24-hour period. Only looking at the peak period can sometimes skew a project's total mobility benefits. We should give moving people the greatest weight here in Northern Virginia. It's time to simplify SmartScale, improve Virginia's data-driven approach, and enhance our focus on transportation projects that increase mobility. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for coming. The next speaker is Jeff Parnes. How you pronounce it, Jeff?
Parnes.
Parnes.
As long as you don't call me late for dinner, I will respond.
Sully District Council and Citizens Association, Mr. Jeff Parnes.
Thank you,
sir.
I have 2 items. The first one is a Sully District Council position. The second one will be my own. Recently, we've been discussing and having public hearings on the Route 28 bypass. Route 28 bypass is a benefit for Prince William County and over the overall area, but it is not on the comprehensive plan of Fairfax County. It crosses through a regional park, and the people in Fairfax County who live in the Sully District are wondering whether it's the policy of the government to approve plans that have not been approved by the county. Fairfax County has not approved this plan and has not changed its comprehensive plan to reflect this highway. And the highway, as I said before, goes through a regional park. We are concerned that this is happening without the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors process of approving road improvements. We are concerned. The second item is my own. I'm a member, and as I have been for 13 years, through the Citizens Advisory Commission of the Transportation Planning Board. Right over here, we have a member from the MWACOG. In any case, one of the things that was presented to us as citizens was the fact that the Metropolitan Washington Transit Authority has been looking to improve its core ability, improve the ability of more electricity through the core, enabling 8-car trains to run through the core. This would support the extension of the blue line to be a circular route that would go from Arlington, Union Station, National Harbor, across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge and back up again, improving the transportation in Fairfax, Arlington, and the Maryland suburbs, as well as the District of Columbia. These type of improvements are not funded. Although Fairfax County has said in its visualized 2050 that it would like to extend Metro west to Centerville, improve BRT, possibly include a route down the 95 corridor that would help Prince William County in the year 2050, which is now what, 27 years ahead of us. But MWATA wants the core to be improved, and no funds have been assigned for this. So we're extending the arms of the metro system without building the core. And as you know that, if your arms are great, but your heart is weak, the body fails. And so we've been making plans to improve the arms and the legs of the metro system without improving the core. I suggest that we need to take our fair share of the core improvements so that we can build the extensions to the core. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you coming. The next speaker is Mr. Douglas Stewart, Fairfax City Citizens for Smarter Growth, and Mr. Ken Reed will be after that. Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Secretary Miller. Yes, I'm a resident of Fairfax City, and I'm speaking for Fairfax City Citizens for Smarter Growth. We are a group of residents who support mixed-use walkable communities. And we're speaking tonight in support of the two Fairfax City submissions that a previous speaker also referenced. Those are the South Street Extension and the George T. Snyder Trail Eastern Extension. Now, both of these projects fit in perfectly with the city's small area land use plans for downtown and North Fax and Fairfax Circle on Route 50. They also tie in with Fairfax County's plans for the Judicial Center. The South Street Extension will line up flush with a street grid being planned in the Judicial Center that will connect with the west end of Fairfax City. And having Fairfax County and Fairfax City working together on these plans is a really great thing that hasn't always happened, and we're really excited about it. It's going to change downtown by adding a street grid network, improving traffic circulation, but also tying in with these areas that are currently mostly surface parking lots that the city is looking to redevelop. The South Street Extension will incentivize that and create opportunities for people to walk, connect with George Mason, and create all of these synergies. Fairfax City is a place where a lot of us all have typically driven through it. It gets tens of thousands of vehicle trips every day going through Route 50, Route 236, Route 123. Fairfax City is now trying to make itself a place where you will stop and walk around and prizing accessibility over sheer mobility. And these are the kinds of projects that probably would not have been funded before Smart Scale came around. And this focus on compatible land use and transportation plans is something that we're really excited about that Fairfax City is doing. And we're appreciative of the staff recommendations to fully fund these projects in Smart Scale. And we hope you will approve them as such. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate it. Mr. Ken Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary and members of the panel. My name is Ken Reed. Thank you very much. I live in McLean, but I spent some 20 years living in Loudon. I served 10 years as a county supervisor and a council member in the town of Leesburg. So I know a little bit about transportation. I think I was also an NVTC commissioner, and I was briefly on the NVTA advisory committee. I am currently running for state senate in District 37, in the new District 37 in Fairfax County, and I'll be on the ballot in November. My website is kenreed.org. Today there was another crash in the vicinity of Fairfax County Parkway and Braddock Road near Pope's Head Road. 2 were injured. At least one was a police officer. There was a fatality in this vicinity in February. And I think there was a fatality in 2022 as well. This is planned for a grade separated interchange in the 6-year program, but I see there's just 10 million in funding on it. I see there's a Garvey bond, and I recognize that there could be NVTA money. I'm focusing only on the 6-year program, but I really believe that the grade separations on the Fairfax County Parkway should be a priority. I don't know if a lot of these are in the comp plan, but I do see that there's an effort to widen the road to 6 lanes. I would rather see grade separations. I think when you widen the road, you're going to impact potentially the bike trail, and you're going to make it more difficult for pedestrians and bikers to cross in key areas. Grade separations are working very well with Route 7 in Loudon. The single point urban diamond plan saves a lot of land and it saves some money. So I would encourage Supervisor Walkinshaw to discuss this with his colleagues. Again, I have not looked yet at the countywide transportation plan and to see if you're planning interchanges. I don't believe you are, but I think there are areas in the Fairfax County Parkway where we need it, like in the Franklin Farm area and others. And this accident today, I think, highlights that. I am positive that these bike and pedestrian projects are important projects, but I noticed about half the money is going into those projects versus roads. And I know the road projects are extremely expensive. I understand that. I think all roads should be multimodal. Whenever we plan a new facility, there has to be a bike and pedestrian access, and if necessary, if like for or express highways, toll lanes, HOV lanes. I just think that we need to be focused on the fact that if we're talking about equity and how transportation impacts communities of color, and if we're concerned about traffic congestion, let's remember that a lot of lower income people cannot afford electric cars. And they have to drive, and they drive cars that use gas, and they get stuck in congestion. A lot of the trails that I see in this plan are probably going to help a lot of people who are, I would say, mostly upper income, who have time to bike, who have time to do that sort of thing, especially go to work. I bike. I have a bicycle and I like to bike. Lived in Norfolk for a couple of years. What's great about living in Norfolk is it's flat and you can bike anywhere. I wish we had that in Northern Virginia, but we don't. So let's not forget that as we move forward. And finally, I want to talk a little bit about I-95. I am pleased that we're extending the hot lanes and we're looking at reversing some of them, but frankly, the road needs to be widened all the way to Richmond. It really does. Amtrak is a nice alternative, and I recognize that there's money from the feds to do this, but frankly, it is not going to do much to alleviate congestion. It gives a good alternative for people to use, but the road is a mess. It is terrible even on weekends going through Fredericksburg to try to get to Northern Virginia. If we want to be ambitious, we can even look maybe at a road that would, a brand new road. This is really tough because there's no right of way for it, and I don't think it's in any plans. But we would look at a road that would connect US 17 and Fauquier County with Route 288 and I-64 west of Richmond. Of course, this needs to be studied. If we're looking outside the box, we should be looking at what we can do to alleviate 95 congestion to Richmond. There's urgent need for this. I'm glad to see that we're getting extra lanes on 81, but even 81 needs extra lanes all the way to Winchester and not just in select places. So thank you very much. I hope if by some miracle they elect a Republican in this county for a state senate, I will have a chance to go to Richmond and maybe champion some of these issues. But I've always been a big advocate for multimodal highways and transit where it's necessary and where it's cost effective. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody running against Mr. Reed that'd like to speak? 7 minutes and 6 seconds. I'm all about equal time.
Is that what I said?
That's what the stopwatch said.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Sandford said. But thank you for being here. It is important. Our next speaker is Mr. Alan Muchnick, the Prince William, Virginia Bicycling Federation. Sir, welcome.
Thank you,
Is that
sir.
right?
You certainly did.
Great. Well,
Great job. I don't have to repeat it. I'm Alan Mutzik. Thank you, Mr. Secretary and distinguished panelists. I live in the city of Manassas and I serve on the boards of the Virginia Bicycling Federation and Active Prince William, statewide and sub-regional active transportation advocacy organizations, respectively. We thank VDOT for recently refilling its statewide bicycle and pedestrian planner position and for staffing the new statewide trails office. We look forward to seeing those offices advance safe, active mobility. We believe it's time to review and update VDOT's 2011 State Bicycle Policy Plan and the CTB's 2004 Policy for Integrating Bicycle and Pedestrian Accommodations. I commend VDOT's Northern Virginia District for initiating a study to estimate the cost to complete all locally planned but unfunded bicycle and pedestrian facilities within the Nova District. While most Nova localities have robust active mobility and Eaton Vision Zero programs, Prince William County still lacks both, so its official inventory of missing bicycle and pedestrian facilities is woefully incomplete. Since 2010, VDOT's roadway reconfiguration program has cost-effectively retrofit bike lanes and pedestrian crossing improvements on many dozens of roadways during scheduled roadway resurfacing, especially in Fairfax County. Prince William County, however, has largely ignored this enormous opportunity to improve the access and safety of its vulnerable road users. We urge the county and VDOT to actively implement this program in our communities. The alignment of US Bicycle Route 1 through Prince William County is a prime example where retrofitted bike lanes or paved shoulders are desperately needed. Though AASHTO and VDOT established this route more than 40 years ago, and a VDOT consultant reevaluated the route's alignment through the Nova District a decade ago, the bicycling conditions on several Prince William route segments are horrendous. For example, the county's online bicycle skill level map labels Old Bridge Road, part of Minnieville Road, Aiden Road, and Fleetwood Road, all lacking bicycle facilities and posted for 45 miles an hour as quote unquote roads to avoid. And tags Hoadley Road and Tanyard Hill Road as quote unquote low comfort. VDOT has a 2005 bicycle level of service map for the Nova and rates those segments similarly. It's long past time for VDOT and the county to collaborate to fix these embarrassing and potentially deadly deficiencies. To address the ongoing epidemic of pedestrian fatalities, VDOT should aggressively implement design speed reductions and pedestrian safety improvements along its multi-lane commercial arterials. VDOT and Prince William should establish safer bike ped crossings of I-95, where there are hardly any, and I-66, and extend the I-66 trail now being built in Fairfax County over Bull Run to connect to both Ball Score Road and to the Northern Virginia Community College Manassas campus. In closing, we strongly support the recommended Smart Scale CMAQ and RSDP awards for Manassas, Manassas Park, and Prince William County. Thank you for this opportunity to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Muchnick. Appreciate you coming out tonight. The final speaker that has signed up tonight is Mr. Charles Grimes, Greater Prince William Trails Coalition. Sir, Mr. Grimes, welcome.
Thank you. I'm Charlie Grimes with the Greater Prince William Trails Coalition. We coalitioned about 2 years ago in order to amplify the voice of our bike and pedestrian advocates within Prince William, Manassas, Manassas Park, and the 4 towns in Prince William County. We're happy to report that the 2040 mobility chapter of Prince William County doubled the length of the bike, pedestrian, and Blueway network that's been proposed. There is, of course, no funding, but at least we finally have a plan. That's the starting point. One of the challenges we face is that we need to find a way to work as a network in the region rather than as isolated jurisdictions. And I'm happy TPB is here tonight because one of the agenda items of TPB for implementing our greenhouse gas emissions target is to complete the National Capital Trails Network by 2030. Let me encourage you as regional leaders to figure out a way for us to go from lines on a map and words in a document to funding to complete the National Capital Trails Network by 2030. If we're going to be reducing vehicle miles traveled, if we're going to be reducing greenhouse gases, we need to find a way to offer people a better way to get around. We need a safe bike pedestrian network. We don't have a safe bike pedestrian network. We need a starting point to create a safe bike pedestrian network. National Capital Trails Network is a good regional starting point. If you're looking for a way to fund it, consider implementing what they did in the Central Virginia Transportation Authority when they were struggling to figure out how to fund the Falls Land Trail. They just simply committed their regional funding to that one project. They took a year and they said, this is a project we're going to do. We're not going to do a little segment here and a little segment there. We're going to do the Fall Land Trail. So they dedicated funding, they dedicated focus, and they're going to build the Fall Land Trail using a lot of their regional money with a priority and with a focus. Let me encourage you as regional leaders looking for a way for us to build something other than another fast road for a car, for us to look at the National Capital Trails Network. Let's build that thing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So appreciate you coming out. Is there anyone else that didn't sign up that would like to have signed up and speak? I'd also like to recognize Rich Dalton. I think it's in the back. Rich, CEO of the VRE, is here tonight. I don't know if you want to add any comments, Rich, but I just want to recognize you and thank you for what you do. Tough job right now, but I know you're getting on it and getting back to where it needs to be. Anyone at the head table that would like to make any additional comments? Well, with that, that is the conclusion of this meeting. I really appreciate everybody that turned out tonight. thank you particularly for the speakers who came to tell us what was going on. As always, there's more need than there want, need than there is fun. We're gonna do the very best we can. So thank you.